Hi, everyone. I hope you are staying warm. I know it got super cold this weekend. We are on to week 13. I know that most of us will have a break next week. So hopefully that'll be a time to rest, recuperate, and just tie up any loose ends that we have. So today I'm going to go over again, remaining assignments, talk a little bit about the research proposal, give some feedback from last week's discussion, and then leave you with the checklist for this week. This is not what I expected. Okay, let me fix this. Okay, this is kind of fixed for now. Grades and remaining assignments. So last week you did your second article critique, that's 10 points. And then after perusal number 12, you will have 76 points possible if you're kind of checking where you're at. Now, including this week, we're going to have 2 more perusals worth 3 points. So we will have our week 13 perusal, which is this week, and then week 14 perusal coming up. So that's 6 points. Then our next major area is our research proposal and video presentations. So that is coming up. So the paper is worth 10 points. The video presentation is worth 4 points. So the due dates, so originally I broke it down to where the paper was due first on November 20th. The video presentation was due the 27th, but if you want to turn them both in together, that is okay. And then the final exam is worth 10 points. So that is due December 6th. I did mention last week that I am going to pare down the length of the short answer portions to make it a little quicker. So that's a little bit less daunting this time for the final. So those are the points that are still available on the table. So remember, with perusal, there's 15 opportunities. I'm going to be grading the 12 highest. So if you need to skip one, you are more than free to do that. If you're sort of calculating where you are and it's not quite where you want to be, you may go back and add on to any previous perusals that you have done. If you do that, you can just send me an email and let me know, and I'll take a look or leave an extra comment. I'll see those comments there, and I'll be able to adjust your grade for previous perusals that we've done. Okay, so as you can see here, one thing that is coming up is your video presentation for perusal. So after you write your research proposal, you are going to do a video presentation, just short, 3 to 5 minutes, sharing your proposal with the class. So I've had the chance to read about your research proposals, but your classmates haven't heard your ideas. So you'll create a PowerPoint, a Google slide, a keynote, Canva, whatever you use to make a presentation, where you will give a quick overview of your proposed study. So you'll talk quickly about the research issue, your research questions, and then the type of design that you would use, qualitative, quantitative, what your data sources would be, how you plan to collect it, and then how you would analyze the data and what the potential significance of your proposal is. So just a few slides, you might have one for the research problem and the question on the same page, your design, and there you could have how you'll collect the data, your participants, instruments, and then an analysis page, and then maybe a significance page. So just a few minutes. So I know that I create mine on Zoom. I just do a Zoom meeting by myself and click record that way. That's one way to do it. I think in PowerPoint, you can create a video that way. It's also okay if you use voiceover. So you don't have to have the video on. You can just do video to capture your slides. Now, once you have that created, you are going to upload your research proposal to Perusal. So when you upload it to Perusal, you are going to toggle over to your course home so you can see these menu items at the top. So you'll see your assignments, and then you will also see library. Now, when you go to library, there will be this folder here, research proposal presentations, and this is where you can upload to the folder. So you click here and you will upload your video file. So it can be a YouTube link, it can be a Google Drive link, it will be a web link that you can upload there where you will already have your audio and video embedded if you choose to use video. So that will be coming up in a couple weeks, but I just wanted to give you a heads up about where that is located and where you're going to upload your video presentations. And then for the final week, I'm going to take all of these videos and put them into a perusal so you can click through, you can watch each other's presentations and leave them a comment about what you think in perusal. So that should be a fun week when we get there. Again, not what I expected, but oh no. Okay, let me fix this and then I'll come back. Okay, I got this together. So this is a reflection on last week's discussion, perusal number 12, over qualitative and mixed methods analysis. So lots of good discussion. I know a lot of people are interested in both qualitative and mixed methods analysis. So really good questions in there. That's something that you can do in perusal is search for, if you want to read my answers to other classmates' questions, you can search for comments by me and you will find all my answers that I'm going in there and answering people's questions. So that's a good way to review and go back as we get ready for the final. So in qualitative analysis, it is, since it's exploratory, since it's inductive, researchers are doing interim analysis as they collect data. So in this example, the researcher is collecting some data, analyzing it, and then deciding which type and what data that they need to go back and collect to more fully explore the issue. So that is interim analysis. That's something that you'll see that I mentioned in my research proposal and my analysis section. There was great comments about memoing. So this is something that is part of the interim analysis process. While qualitative researchers are collecting data, they are also memoing and writing about what they're doing, what they're noticing throughout the process. So there was some great questions about intercoder reliability and what that looks like when you have different coders of qualitative data. So in some large scale qualitative studies, there is a huge amount of data to analyze. And so there might be a team of research assistants or colleagues that are working together to analyze some data. So Eric asked a question about this, about how, and because of course this was also mentioned as one of the ways to establish validity in qualitative research. So Eric had asked, like, what is the process that researchers do to establish this intercoder reliability? And so there's many different approaches, but in general, it involves a lot of collaboration and discussion. So if researchers are going to use a priori codes, they will meet, they will make their code list, do their definitions, and then do some practice examples. So they might come up with the code list, mutually agree on what each of those look like, what examples and non-examples will be, and then they would practice coding a small segment of the data and then come back together and make sure that they are coding it the same way, and if they're not, troubleshoot that. So that's how they do it with an a priori code. Now, if they are using inductive codes or in vivo codes, the way that they would do it is, they're starting off, they don't have codes. The codes are gonna emerge from the data itself. So what they would do is they might go off and individually code a small segment of data or do a segment together as a group, and talk about that, and then come together and share how they analyzed it, what codes they came up with, what codes did you come up with, here's why, a lot of discussion like that, and then coming to a consensus about what the established agreed upon codes are going to be, writing a definition for those, and coming back and checking together. So that intercoder reliability, once they have established that, they'll code small groups of the data, share, and then to establish the intercoder reliability, they'll code the same segment of data and make sure that they are getting the same codes. So this was a great question that Panina asked about repetition. So she made a great point that repetition is something that you most oftenly see with quantitative design, because quantitative design is focused on confirming hypotheses and relationships between variables. So that's something that to establish validity, you will try to replicate it. But in qualitative research, validity is established in other ways, as we mentioned in our last chapter, in chapter 20. There was also that table in the discussion questions that had a list of different methods that qualitative researchers can use to establish validity or trustworthiness in their study. So you're not going to see repetition in the same way, but what you do see in qualitative research quite often is repeating or using a similar method. So that's something that qualitative researchers do when they are writing up their own methodology, is that they look at other similar studies and they look at how other qualitative researchers have designed their study, how they have collected data, how they've analyzed data. And oftentimes they will not use repetition in the sense that they're trying to find the same results, but they will cite and use a similar methodology or analytic strategy and apply it to their research context. So that's something that you will see often. And as you saw in your qualitative article critiques, the methodology sections in qualitative studies are often much more detailed because there's a lot more nuance and a lot more researcher decisions to be made in more open-ended exploratory studies like that. So you will see that as well. So when talking about another approach for validity is intercoder reliability, making sure that you are coding the data consistently. This is something that I'm noticing that is in APA 7 style, using themselves instead of him or her. Codes that are developed prior to examining the data, a priori code. So that's a hint. You can see priori there to figure that out. Whereas master list is your code book. Think of it like a thesaurus, or, well, not a thesaurus, a glossary for the codes that you're using to analyze. And then inductive codes are codes that the researcher is applying to a segment of data. That was, did I include that question? Okay, let me wait for that. When you have, so after your first round of coding, you might use a priori codes, inductive codes, in vivo codes when it's coming directly from the data. So in the second round coding, you're looking for different relationships, categorical relationships, and grouping together these smaller codes to represent a greater theme. And so that is what you will see here in that secondary analysis. So that was another question that was really good, was about how you might decide to segment your data. So the most precise or the most involved way that you can segment the data is from grounded theory, and they use what's called line by line coding. So every line of code of text they apply a code to, and that's something that someone asked, how long is a code? It's typically 1 to 4 words. That it can be more than 1 word, but not too long. But if you want more specific, you would code each line of the interview transcript or document or whatever piece of text that you're analyzing. And then a more general approach would be to code larger segments of the data, like a paragraph, 2 paragraphs. So that's another way that researchers could maybe strengthen their analysis, is by how small they are segmenting the data when they are doing the initial codes. So in the analysis of mixed method studies, so there are several different ways that you can employ analysis for that interaction component. So the first one is data correlation, is coming up with is transferring the quality data into categorical variables to examine the correlation between those different data types. So that is data correlation. Then you also have data consolidation, where you are combining the data to create a new variable or type of code or data set that could be analyzed. And then data transformation, the process of transforming qualitative data into quantitative data and vice versa. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention was the questions about the research protocol. So the research protocol, or the interview protocol, excuse me. The interview protocol is what you will include in your instruments and data collection section if you are including interviews. And the interview protocol is just a list of questions that you will ask. So oftentimes you will see a semi-structured interview protocol is used in qualitative studies. So this is kind of like the plan, but once researchers get into the interview, it's okay if they deviate from the interview protocol. That's why it's semi-structured, because they should be probing based on what the participant is sharing with them. So on the research protocol, they might have follow-up questions that you might ask if the participant shares something, and then if they don't, you might not ask that follow-up question. So an interview protocol would probably have 5 to 10 questions, depending on the length of the interview that you're planning for, because good interviewers will be probing and listening to the participant and asking them questions to get them to elaborate on their responses, especially with like narrative inquiry. I know a lot of people are interested in that. The goal of your interview questions is to ask open-ended questions where you get the participant talking and sharing in a narrative format. So definitely not yes or no questions. Things like describe the experience of, or tell me about what it was like to. Or, if you're interviewing a teacher, like the textbook study, for instance, like describe how, like a typical day of lesson planning, how you use your textbook to plan for lessons and deliver lessons to students. So the teacher is talking in an open-ended way. So that is what the interview protocol will be for those of you who are including that in your research proposal. And I did include one in the sample that is attached this week in iCollege as well. Okay, so here is the checklist for the week. So just one chapter this week, the last chapter in our text, chapter 21, which is really a reference guide, but it does have some just great helpful reminders about your writing and style and how to avoid bias in your language. And this will go with perusal 13. We will have a Zoom discussion this week on Thursday, November 17th at 5:15. So if you have questions about your research proposal, or want to talk about that and formatting and what to include and what it might look like, that will be this week. And then our upcoming due dates. So our research proposal paper, again, you can turn that in on Sunday, November 20th, or this should say the 27th. Let me correct that. So that is up to you if you want to take some extra time, but the 27th, your video presentation is also due that day as well. So you can think about how to manage your time like that. Again, the video presentation is over the same information. You are just presenting it in a way to where the class can listen. So please email me with any questions, and I hope you have a great week.